Good day viewer, welcome to the EasyQS YouTube channel. This is a channel that do educational videos on the area of quantity surveying. This is mostly about estimating the cost of buildings professionally, and our main focus is to assist students grasp concepts in the most simplified way. We also help you as a student revise for exams and also in your assignment through our videos and through private tutorial classes. If you are new here, welcome so much, and if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your support. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to use the NRM 2 method of measurement to take off the substructure works. Kindly stay tuned.
First thing that we do when we get to site is site clearance. How do we measure site clearance? Once you get to site, you are shown the full extent of the site boundary. You see, all this is the site that we shall be able to construct. If we have a section like this, when we are excavating for the strip foundation, we shall excavate the foundation from here. We dig a trench. A trench comes that way. So this will be the trench. All right. This below here, we have the concrete, the mass concrete in the strip footing. Then here we have the wall, the masonry wall going up. Maybe we could have the brick, the cavity, and the block work. All right. So what I want to explain is the foundation spread. The foundation spread is this space here. The foundation spread is this space between the edge of the foundation and the wall. The edge of the trench and the wall. So between the end of the trench and the wall, this space that is left here, also called the working space, is also called the foundation spread. So whenever we are measuring for site clearance, we will not only measure the external dimensions of the wall that I'm showing using my arrow, but we'll also add the foundation spread on the outside, because we need to clear all that area and also the excavate topsoil for all that area until the edge of the foundation. The edge of the foundation is where I'm showing using my arrow here. All right. So when we are doing site clearance, we will do measure the external dimensions of the building. Then we shall include the foundation spread on all corners. So we shall include for the length, we shall add foundation spread for the width. We shall take the external dimensions of the building, then we add a foundation spread and a foundation spread. I hope that is clear. So after site clearance, the next step we do is the excavation to remove the topsoil. The same area that we do site clearance, the same area we do excavation to remove topsoil. So the measurements will be the same. And also for the topsoil, we need to dispose it off site, and removing the topsoil is measured in meters square, but disposing the soil will be carried. It will be transported by lorries. It will be transported. It will be, you see, that transportation shall be paid for. So that paying for, it's usually measured by volume. We shall pay the people who are transporting in terms of volume. So the removal of topsoil is usually measured in meters squared, the unit rate. Then the disposal of the soil is measured in meter cube. So assuming that we are excavating, you see this is the ground level when we go to site. Then we have excavated 150 millimeters deep for topsoil. What will be the area of the topsoil excavation? It shall be the external dimensions of the wall, including the foundation spread both sides. Then we shall multiply by the width, which is the external dimensions of the building, plus the foundation spread both sides. Then for the disposal of the topsoil, to measure it in volume, we shall take the length times the width. Then we shall multiply by a volume of 150 millimeters deep. Okay, so I hope that is clear. So the next item that we need to excavate is to reduce the level. We say that we reduce the level from the you see, when we get to site, the site is at the ground level. So when we remove the topsoil is that soil that supports vegetation growth. All right. So after we have removed the soil that supports vegetation growth, maybe at depth of 150, we could not still have met the level where the soil is stable and we can lay the hardcore. Okay, so whenever we are taking off, we need to remember some things. When we get to site, the site is at the ground level. Once we remove the topsoil, we strip the soil, the ground off the topsoil, so we get to the strip level. After that, if the strip level is not stable enough to hold the hard coal so that you can construct on top of it, we need to dig deeper. That digging deeper will take us to the reduced level. So whenever we have removed the topsoil and the soil is not stable enough, we need to dig deeper, and that digging deeper is called reducing the level. So if you can see in our diagram here, we usually have the site was on this level when we were getting to site. We removed the topsoil, so it was at this red broken line level, that is the strip level. But still, since the soil was not stable enough at that level, maybe in the structural drawings were shown that the depth at which hard coal was laid was much deeper than that which the topsoil was removed. We need to dig deeper to the bold black line, and that level is called the reduced level. So how do we take off or measure the reduced level, excavating the reduced level? We usually take the same area that we had done site clearance, the same area that we removed the topsoil, then we shall multiply by the depth to which we are reducing the level with. So how much more are we digging deeper? Because it's measured in volume. All right, so then we need to dispose this soil out of the site. After we have reduced the level, this soil was not strong enough to help us support the hard coal so that we can do the floor construction. So we shall transport it out of site, and that volume of soil is the same as the one we have reduced the level. So it's measured in cubic meters, that is volume. All right, the other item that you need to measure is the excavation of the foundation trenches, and how do we dispose this soil away from the sites. So whenever we are taking off, we need to bear things in mind that we usually have external walls and sometimes internal walls. All right, so sometimes we can have the external walls and sometimes the internal walls, or we can also have buildings that have only external walls. The concept is, how do we measure the soil that we are going to excavate? How do we pay for the excavation of the trenches? We usually measure it in terms of meter cubed. This one, you remember, we are using the NRM 2, the new revised method of measurement. It states that the soil that is excavated from the trenches should be in meter cubic. I will be able to show you in our next video how do we read the NRM2 so that we can be able to know what it really states. All right, where did we get this meter cubed from? So so excavating the foundation trenches, we usually excavate from the reduced level. Remember, the whole site was at this level when we were getting to site. We removed the topsoil, it took the topsoil level. We reduced the level. So the whole site, you see this whole site, this whole site, it's the full extent of the site boundaries. But now, where the building is occupying, this bold line that is shown here, this level, this yellow area, all this building inside this bold line is at a lower level than the ground level. This other area here is on this level here, which was the existing ground level. But now all this other area here inside, it's on this reduced level, that level. All right, so when you're excavating the trenches, we will start from the reduced level going down until the bottom of the trenches. So how we measure for the excavation of the trenches? We will always use the center line of the trenches. Remember, we have done so many videos about calculating the center line, so I will not go back to that. You should look for those videos that shows explains what is a center line, why do we use center lines, how do we calculate center lines. Then we shall know how to use a center line. We'll take the center line times the thickness of the trench, the width of the trench, times the depth of the excavation of the trenches. All right, so we shall be able to know how much volume of the soil by taking the center line times the width of the trenches times the depth of the trenches from the reduced level. Remember, the whole site is at the normal ground level, but where the building occupies is already at the reduced level. So when we want to excavate the trenches, we shall start from the reduced level up to the bottom of the trenches. Very good. So we shall go to the other item, which is to compact the bottoms of the trench excavations. How do we measure compacting the bottoms of the trench excavations? Remember, these are the trenches. We excavated from the reduced level to the bottom of the trenches. We want to compact the bottoms. So how do we measure it? Then NRM 2 states that we should measure it in meters squared. So how do we measure that area? We shall still take the center line, then we shall multiply by the width of the trenches so that we can get the total area below the trenches. Alright, so we shall take the center line of the trenches, we multiply by the width of the trenches so that we can get the area at the bottoms of the trenches, because the item is compacting the bottoms of the trench excavation. Why are we compacting? We are compacting so that it can be compact enough so that we can be able to, maybe if the soil is red soil, if we compact, we can now do the blinding of concrete on top of it before we do the mass concrete. All right, so if it is not red soil, maybe it's still not very soft, we can compact the soil, then we should lay hard coal and compact them before we do the blinding. All right, so the next item, which is the support to the faces of the excavations. So how do we measure the support to the faces of the excavation? Remember, we support the walls, but we compact the floors of the trenches. So how do we support the faces? And in this diagram, you're shown very well how we compact or how we support the faces of the excavation. You see, for the outer walls, we are supporting from the ground level to the bottom of the trench. For the inner walls, we are supporting from the reduced level up to the bottom of the trench. So we need just to find the total area using the, you see, we shall use the external the perimeter of the trenches. Then we shall multiply by the height for the outer face of the trench. Then for the inner face, we shall take the inner perimeter or the perimeter or the internal perimeter of the trenches. Then we shall multiply by the height from the reduced level to the bottom of the trenches. Very good. So we shall move to the next item, which is concrete to foundations. How do we measure concrete to foundation? When you're using the NRM 2, we shall measure it in terms of meter cubic. This is what the NRM 2 states. So diagrammatically, what do we mean? What we mean is, you see the concrete that is done at the bottom of the foundation. So how we shall measure the volume of concrete? We shall take the center line of the trench, then we shall multiply by the width of the trench, then we shall multiply by the depth of the concrete, because we want the volume of the concrete in the foundation, and because it is on all these gray parts, so we shall take the center line of the trench, we multiply by the width of the trench, because it's the same here, it's the same here, same here, and same here. Then we shall multiply by the thickness of the concrete. Very well. So the next item is the internal skin of the cavity wall, and we are told that it is measured in meters squared. So when we are finding the area of the internal skin of the cavity wall, how do we measure the area? You see, this is the internal skin of the cavity wall. The internal skin is usually made of blockwork. Alright, blockwork is always in the inside. So how do we measure the area of the blockwork? We shall take the center line of the blockwork. Alright, then we shall multiply by the height of the blockwork from the on top of the concrete up to where we have the DPC. Alright, so that height, then we shall multiply by the center line. That shall give us the area of the internal skin of the cavity wall. So we shall go to the external skin of the cavity wall. How are we able to measure the area? Still, we shall always use the center line. So if you haven't seen our videos on center line, kindly go back to those videos, because you really need to know how to calculate center lines and why we use center lines. Because in this substructures takeoff and even for superstructure, you'll find out that most of the time we use center lines. Okay, so for the external skin, we shall take the center line of this external skin, the center line of all of it, then we shall multiply by the height. All right, that will give us the area for the external skin of the cavity wall, which is measured in meters squared. All right, so the next item is the in case we have internal walls, how do we measure their area? All right, so for the you need to differentiate and you need to listen to this very carefully. There's a difference between the internal trench and the internal wall. All right, so I will start by explaining to you. Whenever we have an internal wall, of course we will have an internal trench. The trench will get when we dig the trench, we excavate the trench, we shall excavate the trench to meet the external trench. You see these bold black lines? These are the walls of the trench. These bold black lines. And for the external one, it's this bold black line. All right. So we have already excavated the trench for the external wall. When we need to excavate the trench for the internal wall, we can only excavate up to where it meets the trench of the external wall, even this side. So we shall not excavate up to the wall. We already have this trench on the outside. So when we are excavating the trench on the inside, we shall only excavate to meet the trench of the external wall. So the length of the trench for the internal wall will start from here where it meets the trench for the external wall to here where it meets the trench for the external wall. Then we shall multiply by the width of the trench. We multiply by the depth up to the reduced level. That is finding the volume of the soil when we are excavating the internal trenches. But when we are excavating, when we are measuring the area of the internal walls for the foundation, we shall measure up to where they meet the external walls. All right. So this length or this wall, it's up to where it meets the external wall. So its length will start from here up to here. So this length is the one that we shall be measuring. Then we shall multiply by the height up to where it reaches the height where it reaches the DPC. The height of the wall is from the above the concrete to where it reaches the DPC. But the height of the foundation of the internal trench is from the depth of the foundation to the reduced level. I hope that is very clear. If you haven't understood that, kindly replay it, and I'm sure you'll understand. So in this item, we were measuring the area of the internal walls. So the area of the internal wall shall be where it meets the wall of the external wall from here up to here. Then we multiply the height up to the DPC. All right. Then we shall go to how do we measure the dam proof cost, the DPC. The DPC is usually measured in meters because it's only placed above the walls. You see, it's placed above the walls so that you can continue now constructing the walls of the superstructure. So as long as the walls are below 300 millimeters wide, they are measured in meters. So how we measure, we shall take the total the center line of these walls. The center line of each wall will give us the length of the DPC that we shall use. So once we add the length, we shall get the total length of the dam proof course that we are supposed to use. All right, so we shall go to the next item, which is forming cavity, including wall ties. When we are forming cavities, the NRM 2 states that the forming of the cavity should be measured in meters squared. So how do we calculate? How do we measure the area of the forming of cavities? We shall measure it just like how we measure the area of the walls. So we shall take the center line of the cavities, Yes, sometimes you'll find that the brickwork is much more than the thickness of the blockwork. The thickness of the brickwork and blockwork could be different. So the center line of the trench could not be the center line for the cavity. In our previous videos, we have done calculations whereby the brickwork was not of the same thickness with the blockwork. So kindly check on those videos so that you can be able to see how we were able to calculate the center line of the cavity. But just in case the brickwork is of equal thickness and of the blockwork, and then it's placed at the center of the trench, then the center line of the trench could be the center line of the cavity. But in case the brickwork and the blockwork do not have the same thickness, then you need to calculate for the center line of the cavity. So forming the cavity is calculated in meters squared, which is taken as the center line of the cavity times the height of the cavity up to the DPC. Alright, so we shall go to the next item, which is filling cavity with concrete. How do we measure filling concrete with cavity with concrete? We shall take the center line of the cavity, then we shall multiply by the width of the cavity times the height of the cavity, because it's measured in volume. Very good. So we shall go to adjustment to facing bricks. For facing bricks to external skin of cavity walls. After we have done these bricks, all right, once we have constructed bricks, there are those bricks that are usually thin. You see, this is the substructure works, but the floor of the house is always above the ground level. So there are those bricks that you shall be seeing from outside, but they are on the substructure. So these bricks, they are supposed to be a bit beautiful. So that is what we call facing bricks. They are made to be a bit aesthetically nice. So when we are doing that, once we are constructing the brickwork, we usually construct the brickwork that has not been, which is not aesthetically beautiful up to the ground level. But from the ground level up, we usually allow just like 2 courses below the floor for facings. So because we had already calculated the area for the brickwork, now we shall adjust, because we need to change 2 courses to be facing bricks. So we shall measure for the adjustment. So how we measure for the adjustment is that we shall take the center line of the brickwork, then we shall multiply by the height of the 2 courses that we shall do facings for the bricks. Okay, so we shall go to the other item, which is backfilling the external faces with previously excavated material. You see, the external faces we usually backfill using the soil. Whatever material we had excavated, we shall backfill it. Mostly it's soil. So when we are backfilling, the volume for backfilling, because we are told that backfilling the external faces which were previously excavated is measured in meters squared if the width is less than 500. If it's less than 500, we measure it in meters squared. If it's greater than 500, we shall measure it in cubic meters. So how do we measure it in meters squared? Because assuming this width is less than 500, we shall measure it in meters squared. So we shall take the center line of this backfilling. You see, in this case, it's represented by this maroon part. We shall find the center line of this maroon part. Then we shall multiply by the height up to the stripped level. Okay, we shall backfill up to the stripped level, because this other area should be replaced with topsoil. We shall reinstate some topsoil from the stripped level upward, because maybe we need to do some beautiful plants around the house. Maybe, but in case we need to do paving, maybe we could replace it with the rest of the soil. So first of all, we usually measure it up to the stripped level before we decide what we shall reinstate with where we had removed the topsoil. So we shall take the center line. This is the center line of that maroon part. That is the center line shown here. It passes here at the center. Then we shall multiply it by the height to get the area for the backfilling of the external faces which were previously excavated. So the next item is backfilling to the external faces which were previously excavated topsoil. Here it's what I was telling you. It's there. We shall reinstate the topsoil here. Mostly when we are doing some beautiful landscaping around the building and we want to plant some nice flowers around the building, we shall reinstate this one with topsoil. Okay, that's why we measure it separately. But if we could be doing paving or continuing in construction, we could backfill it maybe with hardcore. all right, so that it can support the floor here. So but now, because you're not told about the construction, you will backfill it with topsoil, and in most videos we call it reinstating the topsoil all around the building, because we need to go back to the ground level after we have constructed the foundation wall. Okay, so the next item is backfilling to internal faces with hardcore. When we are reinstating, we are backfilling the inside of the trenches up to the reduced level. We are using hardcore, and hardcore is measured in meter cubed. So how do we measure the volume of the hardcore that we shall use? We shall find the center line of this yellow part. You see, this yellow part is where we are backfilling using hardcore up to the reduced level, because from the reduced level it's something else that is continuing. All right, so we are backfilling the trenches and up to the reduced level. So we shall take the center line of the hardcore for this yellow part. The center line is at the center, then we multiply by the height up to the reduced level. Then we shall multiply by the thickness of this spread on the inside, so that you can get the volume of the hardcore. Remember, volume is length times width times height. The length is the center line. All right, then the width is the thickness of the trench here, then the height. Okay, so we shall go to compacting ground. Compacting the ground is usually measured in meters squared. So when we are compacting the ground, we shall compact up to the where we meet the wall. All right, this red part shows the width of compacting. Then you see we are shown here in this drawing the full extent. So after we have backfilled the hardcore here, it was yellow here, we shall come and compact this whole area inside the internal walls, inside the blockwork. All right, all that area shall be compacted. Compacting is measured in meters squared. So we shall take the length up to the walls, then the width up to the walls. All right, then we shall go to filling to make up levels with hardcore. You see, after the reduced level, we shall make up the levels up to where we want to start construction with hardcore. So how do we measure it in cubic meters? The volume of the hardcore, we shall take the total area we have compacted where we shall lay the hardcore, then we shall multiply the thickness of the hardcore to make up the levels. I hope this is getting very sweet and it's getting very easy. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, can you remember to subscribe? That is the support that we need. If you have classmates and classmates, kindly share our videos to them, and we shall really appreciate and continue making good content for you. So our next item is compacting the filling, the hardcore filling. We need to compact it. How do we measure it? In meters squared. So inside the walls, the whole area inside the walls shall be compacted. So we just measure the length times the width inside the walls. Okay, then we have the insulation to the floors. From the hardcore that we have laid, we need to insulate the floors so that we can now do the slab construction. How do we measure the insulation to the floors? It's measured in meters squared. How it's measured? We shall take the total area inside the internal blockwork. You see, inside the walls, the same area we have compacted, the same area we have done hardcore, the same area we shall now do insulation. So we shall take the length and the width inside the wall. That is where we shall do the insulation. Then we shall go to the damp-proof membrane. The damp-proof membrane is that black sheet, all right, that sheet of material that is mostly polyethylene that is used to prevent moisture from going up. How it's measured is in meters squared. The total area that you have done insulation, which is the same the total area that you have done hardcore. Okay, inside the walls, the whole area inside the walls, that is the area that you shall do the DPM. Alright, then the next thing is the concrete bend. The concrete bend is measured in meter cubed. So we shall take the total area inside the walls, then we shall multiply by the thickness of the concrete to calculate the volume of the concrete bend. So we shall go almost to the last item, which is DPM, to the vertical, to the perimeter. You see, this is the concrete that we have done. Between the wall and the concrete, we usually have some DPM coming up. The membrane will come up here. So it goes up the wall, so that water that can be coming through the concrete doesn't seep into the walls. Okay, this is before we get to the DPC. So these are vertical DPM that we shall do. We usually calculate it by taking the length is taken to inside face of the internal walls. So we shall take the total perimeter of the internal walls. Then that length is usually the length of the DPM because it's usually measured in linear meters. Thank you so much for watching. This was a video for the grammatic representation for taking off using the NRM. So I hope you have benefited a lot from this video. Kindly, if you have benefited, let us know in the comment section. If you have any other questions, kindly ask in the comment section. In our next video, I'll be able to show you how to use the NRM tool to take off and how do we get reference from that NRM tool. So kindly stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, remember to subscribe. This is the kind of support you need so that you can continue making these videos for you for free. So thanks a lot and see you in the next video.